Lord, and
I come to find out that everybody needs somebody, and men need somebody to talk to, a good strong friend to bounce things off of and to give them great spiritual guidance and wisdom. And that's what the Steel Forum was created for, to be a different type of men's ministry. I'll read the scripture tonight that comes from the book of Psalm, the 133rd Psalm, and after that I'm going to turn it over to our brother Theo and let him bless us with the song, and then we will go on from there with our program for this evening. And the word of the Lord reads, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of his garment, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore." Blessed be the word of the Lord. So this time I'm going to introduce our speaker for this evening. He is Mr. Ken Lawson. He's the Secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. He's a native Floridian. Not many of those left in the world. I'm so glad I am one. He's spent more than 12 years serving and protecting the public in numerous regulatory positions. After serving as an assistant U.S. attorney, he was appointed the Assistant Secretary of Enforcement for the U.S. Department of Treasury. In this capacity, he was responsible for the oversight of several federal law enforcement agencies, including the U.S. Secret Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Federal Law Enforcement Training. In 2003, he returned to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida, where he defended the United States against civil claims. He was then appointed to the Assistant Chief Counsel for Field Operations with the Department of Homeland Security's Transportation Security Administration, a position he held for several months before moving to the private sector. In the private sector, he spent 2 years consulting for the Booz Allen Hamilton, including 1 year as chief of party for the Financial Crimes Prevention Project in Indonesia. He most recently served as vice president for compliance at Finance Inc., a finance service company in Tampa, where he was responsible for the company Bank Secrecy Act anti-money laundering program and its compliance with state money transmitter licensing regulation for 42 states. I could go on and on and on, but one of the things I can say, I'm glad to be associated with him. One, as the secretary of the department that I work for, he's made a great deal of changes, increased morale. He's done some miraculous things. My heart goes out whenever the Lord decides to move him to another position. I feel for the person that comes behind him. They have some big shoes to fill. But more than that, I'm proud to say that he is a part of that black and gold Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. With that being said, please put your hands together and join me in welcoming Secretary Ken Lawson.
And praise the Lord, we're blessed. And I'm blessed to be among y'all. And I just want to share a little bit about my heart as a man, the challenges I face, and my influences. Because like all of us, we're all shaped by the men in our lives. You know, for me, in my life is shaped by 3 men. My father, my stepfather, my grandfather. I wouldn't be here but for those 3 men and how they made me who I am. You know, with my father, you know, he went to FAMU back in the 60s. He was in the Marching 100, played the saxophone. He was strong, he was handsome, but he was irresponsible. He was the kind of man who married my mother and then had myself and my sisters. It was never there. And from his example, I learned what it meant not to be a man. How a person perhaps can be given many things. For instance, when he finished FAMU, he was given a house by my grandfather, given a job, gambled, and left us hungry many days. And as a child, I wondered, how can you do that? And then when he died, because he divorced my mom, he died after leaving us and never seen him for about a decade. I went to his funeral and looked upon his body and wondered, will that be me one day? And he taught me an example of how not to be a man. Whereas my grandfather went to FAMU back in 1919 when he was a child, and then went to tailoring school there, and he learned what he wanted from his life. He went to BCC and then FAMU again for his master's. And he was a part of our family. He was the kind of man who was an oldest son, school principal during segregation. And with his example, I followed him from age 6 till he died when I was 46. And he showed me that every day you gotta be there for your family, to love. To love them means not just say the words, but to do the deeds, to humble yourself, to everybody, to ensure that a future's built, not just promote yourself. Because he was a school principal, elder in our church, head of our family reunion, but at all times his heart was there to give to everyone. And he sacrificed so we can grow. But one thing I learned from him, beyond just being a strong man, is that sometimes when you're a strong man, you focus so hard on being that rock, that pillar, that sometimes you're not as tender as you should be to late in your life. See, he was married to my grandmother for many years, and when she passed away, he faced a change because he realized he spent years trying to be the leader, trying to be the role model. But then with ladies sometimes, they don't want a role model, but they want a helping hand, or an arm, a kiss, compassionate words. And when she died, he changed. He was taught from his father in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that it's not appropriate necessarily to be all that tender. They know that they're loved. But when she died, he realized I should have said I loved her more. I should have cared less about my position. I should have cared more about holding her hand, giving you roses, and then those tender moments where we can make you feel special. And from his example, I learned to be strong, but also tender. And then with my stepfather, great guy. My stepfather was from Virginia. He volunteered, went to Vietnam, served in the Marine Corps as an infantry, grunt. Went into the rat holes and served honorably. But he went to the Marine Corps during Vietnam because he grew up feeling like he was worthless, no self-esteem at all. He was the smallest of 3 brothers, told that he was not smart, so he had to constantly prove himself. And when he left Vietnam and married my mom, he worked 3 jobs to feed us because my father never helped us. But by working those 3 jobs, he was trying to say, I love you, but also prove something. And on his deathbed, he looked at us and said, I wish I spent more time with you. I wish I loved myself more. I wish I realized I had value. And from an example, I realized as a man, you gotta realize that regardless of what the world says, you have a value. You gotta love yourself. I'm a sinner by nature. I'm not a biblical man, but I read the Bible every once in a while. And I remember the only time Jesus was negative when he saw this tree that had bear bad fruit. And he looked at it and the tree died. And I think sometimes, like my stepfather, we as men can perhaps look at the negative in ourselves and not love ourselves. And we say we're bad instead of saying we're good. And realize there's gold in front of us that we can build and develop. And for me, my 3 role models, it gave me something to look at to be my own man. With my father, learned a lesson of being responsible. With my grandfather, be responsible but be loving. With my stepfather, love yourself and know you have value. And create your own path. Just recently, I went on an adventure. Went to climb this mountain in Washington State, Mount Rainier. The mountain's about 14,000 feet. I'm from Florida, so I'm not used to being at high altitude. But when you climb a mountain, it was snow and all that, you have to have the right gear. And then you use an ice axe to protect yourself. If you're going to slide down to catch yourself from falling, you wear ice shoes or walk through the snow. But you have to be prepared for that thin air, because you can't breathe as well as you can, say, here in Florida. And before I climbed that mountain, I was thinking, why the heck am I doing this? This is kind of stupid, because I was having trouble breathing, almost broke my knee. And then I just started thinking about my own value, my own goals, what I desired. And as I climbed up that mountain, got to the top, and came down, I realized something special for me. That for one of the first times in my life, I didn't think about my father, my grandfather, or my stepfather as examples. But I looked within my own heart, my own desires, my own psyche, to be my own man. And I think that's the trick for so many men. Even if you have role models, sometimes we fall back on the stereotypes, on what we should be, who we should be, how we should think, instead of thinking for ourselves. But there comes a time we use those examples, you have to get beyond them to be your own man in your own right, and not think about those who came before you, but realize you're blazing a trail that's unique to your own self. So in my own heart, those examples have allowed me to become who I am as an individual. And what I share within this is that as men, we are always striving to be better, facing, negative stereotypes, facing pressures, facing demons with ourselves. And I would say, let's embrace our own hearts, embrace our own dreams, realize our heritage, but go beyond that. So I appreciate this time to share a little bit, Minister, share who I am, what I think, but that's my view of manhood in my heart and my experience.
So who do you talk to when things get challenging? Because men typically hold things in and they don't like to share. But how do you resolve those issues when you need somebody to talk to? You have like 500 Facebook friends, or you have a close cadre of people, and if so, how did you go about forming those relationships?
For me, I had 5 key friends. I mean, you can know so many people in this world, but there's only a few people who know your heart. And I think as men, it's a fiction that you have to be strong all the time and hold it in. That'll kill you. It'll give you a heart attack. You have to have a network of people who can tell you that you're wrong or you're right, help you see things differently, and help you grow. So for me, when I have challenging situations, I don't hesitate to reach out to those people who love me and love me enough to tell me that I'm wrong, right, help me grow, because then that gives me perspective. And also I'm willing to talk to a stranger in a way. Maybe I tell them what my problem is, but talk to someone I kind of know and just hear what they think, because you have to have a sounding board, someone who doesn't know you at times, to kind of test your theory. Because when you come to a solution, before you pull that trigger and act foolishly, ask someone commonsensical, does this make sense? Or is this just stupid? And what will be the best way to perhaps do this? Always got to test that theory, because if you don't, you may fail. So that's what I do.
What's your view of men these days with the willingness to accept accountability and responsibilities for their actions? Or do you see a lot of this victim mentality in the sense of I'm blaming someone else?
You know what? I think it's always been that way, whether it's today or yesterday. You got some people who say, woe is me. And you got some people who look at themselves and say, it's on me. Because the bottom line for those people, you think about it, if you go back 100 years ago, let's say it's 1914. Forget race, but think about time, okay? Technology was different, okay? We're on the edge of World War I, all right? You had economic pressures. But with all that being said, human beings are human beings, But within that scope, as a human being, we have the same desires, wants, needs. We need to be respected, need to be loved, need to acquire, need to worship the Lord, to have a spouse, have a home. All those things are the same. And recognize there's human, frailties and human desires. Nothing's changed. But within yourself, are you willing as a person, just like you have to be willing to accept the Lord on your own, are you willing to accept your life and use your muscle and strength to make things happen? If you're not, then that's victimization. But if you are, come what may, you move forward and make things happen. It may be tough for you, because everyone has different situations. Some have, privileges, some don't. But within that scope of what you have, how do you use to get what you want and build a real rich life?
Listen, you're Secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulations. You had an agency of nearly 1,600, 1,800 people. You have a senior management staff that you deal with and you interact. From that standpoint, you're truly a leader. As men, we're called to be the leaders and the priests of our house, to lead and to guide them. When you look at leadership in general, what are some of the things that you could share with us about leadership, what it's all about, and how can we become better leaders as men, and things that we can use in our personal lives as well as our career?
Leadership is that you always have to be the first one. And the reality is that's about being a servant leader. Are you willing to give your heart? Are you willing to share? Are you willing to understand? And when you listen to someone, are you actively listening, or are you just simply listening for a pause where you can speak your mind and tell what you think? And I think that's a failure with a lot of people who say they're leaders. Because being a servant leader means you analyze the situation, you understand the culture that exists, and the needs of the people, whether it's your family, or whether it's your home. And then you have to decide, what will you do to help these people accomplish their goals? You know, in your own home, if your goal is to build a legacy with your wife and your children, you know, what's important? What's important is that your wife knows she's loved. Let your children know that they are cared for. At times you have to discipline them, but discipline means that you're helping them grow and become better people. So when they're, 20, 30, 40 years old, they're effective. All right? And then you have joint goals as a family, and you move them towards that direction. Then with an organization, as a leader, you analyze this, the organization. What are the needs? Who are the people? How do you communicate with them? What are the core values that exist before? You never impose your will, but you earn people's trust. By earning their trust, slowly and surely, those people then start listening to you, and you can blend together your dreams and goals with their desires and move in a common direction. And I think that's one of the biggest things too, which makes an organization or family dysfunctional. You're not focusing in a common direction as to where you're going. So for me, whoever's the head has to realize they have to be subservient. But subservient doesn't mean being weak or passive, but it does mean being flexible of mind and spirit and heart, and listening and giving, and standing up and saying, we are going this way at times because this was best for the organization from our joint common goals and dreams.
This next question is going to be a challenging question. It's a tough one. When you look around at your level in state government, being the secretary of an agency, there are not many African Americans who hold such high positions, and not even a lot of African American men. And then when you look down throughout the state organizational structure, there are few. And then you look at what's going on in the world today and the socioeconomic challenges that we face. What can you say to black men to help them to try to close that economic gap from an educational standpoint, from a financial standpoint with income? The gap, that disparity is just widening. I mean, how are you able to do it, and what can you say to young black men today?
I think, this is my personal opinion, that, as individuals, whether you're black, you're white, Hispanic, Indonesian, whatever, be real with your heart and your mind, what you want to do with this life. We have so much time on this earth, right? And then we're all given different hands. You're born into a rich family or a poor family. You're born, in a poor family, different levels of poverty. Then you're surrounded by individuals who influence you, whether in school or church, whatever. Right? But then, if there comes a point you have to say, what do I want to do in this life? What's my message? And within loving yourself and really being clear about where you want to go, start really identifying the path it takes to get what you want. There are a lot of problems in this world. A lot of problems in our country, a lot of problems in our state, a lot of problems in our city, a lot of problems in our homes, a lot of problems in our churches. But the thing is, we can only control ourselves. And that comes down to understanding your heart. And, for me, I'd have, I call it come to Jesus moment when I was younger, where I grew up in Gainesville, Florida. And then, people try to dictate who you're going to be. If you're a black person, you act this way. If you're from Gainesville, you act that way. If you go to this school, you act a certain way. And then it comes a point you have to say, this is who I am, come what may. And like I was saying about my stepfather, his example, not loving himself, I had to come to terms with loving myself and realizing what are my skills and assessments. Like my father died when I was in college. I remember sitting thinking, wow, he wasted his life. He died at 43, And I said, I don't want to be that at 43. And I looked at myself and wrote down a piece of paper. Who am I? What do I want? What am I good at? What am I bad at? Let's focus on the good. And things have never been easy. It's challenging for me, challenging for everybody. We all have our tough times. But if we're willing to be honest about who we are, how the world works, and the good things that exist, perhaps we all can make our lives even richer. It's not easy, but it can be richer. And nothing's ever fair. You just have to accept that. And there's people who are disadvantaged who are white, people who are advantaged who are black. So what? What I'm going to do to make myself, and you make yourself the most valuable person you can, fulfill your dreams and goals. That's the deal.
Yeah. Secretary Lawson, I wanted to ask you, since this is your first time leading a state agency, and I guess I can speak from the inside looking out, the dynamic, the energy, the perspective you brought, the culture change that you were able to affect. When you came on board, did you have a plan, say after 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years? Because, you know, it's a tenuous position because it's predicated on, you know, external factors, but did you have a plan, and is it unfolding as you anticipated?
Yes, that's the answer. I did have a plan. Like, first, I'm lucky that I've had several leadership positions in the past. You know, my grandfather, and I'll go back to that because that's really the key right there. You know, I tell you that he was the leader of our family. That matters. Granddad, you know, and his father was the leader of his family. And then from when I was little to when my parents separated till he died, we regularly sat down on his porch and just talked about multiple things. We talked about family, talked about the state, talked about government, talked about the church, leadership, and talked about, you know, my responsibility to move our family name forward. And not just me, but my brothers and my sisters. So from that engagement with him, and watching his example too, when, you know, at church, when he was, you know, in charge of, say, the finances, or he's a mason dealing with his mason business, or watching him deal with our family reunions, or him at school, or him just dealing with all these things, realize, okay, this is an example of leadership I want to follow. And I've been tasked to carry it on. So that's helpful as a foundation. And then, you know, the little things we do, you know, like saying where you play, say, league football, or you do something in high school or college, that all matters. So, you know, you have to use each moment in your life as a time to grow. So for me, you know, captain of the wrestling team. Then for me, you know, get involved with the fraternity. For me, get involved with student government. For me, go to law school. And in law school, you know, get involved with, say, the Black Law Student Association, become president of that. Then go to the military. And so every step has to be thought out. And you got to take every opportunity to grow as a leader. To fail is to succeed. So, and then in each job, it's not just a job title, but what you do outside that. So for me, I spent years thinking about the concept of leadership, and I read about it quite a bit. So when I got this opportunity, I had a plan in place of where I wanted to go, and the trick was how you get there. And, you know, the basic thing I learned in the Marine Corps is this: when you take over any new command, pay attention, learn the environment, know who the people are. Don't go in changing everything, but, you know, earn people's respect from the get-go. Like, the worst thing is a leader who says, I'm in charge, all right, obey me, as opposed to, how you doing? What's going on? Nice to meet you. I'm Ken. Show me your picture. It's your family. All that time, you pay attention to everything else. See how things are laid out. And then you adjust your plan accordingly. It's not just dogmatic. This is how it has to be, because you said so from the get-go. It has to be flexible. It's a dynamic, growing organism, right? So that's the foundation for my grandfather, my family, and different jobs and opportunities have helped me grow. And in the past, I've failed as a leader, and also being able to reflect on the failures, because those failures help you become better. You know, I was in charge of a project in Indonesia, and had challenging times here and there with Indonesians and Americans, and there's some good times and bad times. But those examples have helped me here in Tallahassee. And then I was in Washington. I was like the #2 man in the Treasury Department in our section. And I saw, we oversaw a whole bunch of law enforcement bureaus. We were going through the terrorist crisis, and I learned a lot about good leadership and bad. But again, it's reflecting on it, synthesizing it, and then using it in the future to be successful. So that's helped me here.
One final question, sir, and I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and meet with us here at Still Forum. How would you like to be remembered? You know, they say we're born, we die, it's that dash in the middle.
Yeah.
What would you like for your dash to be representative of?
I was kind, I helped people, I was real, wasn't phony, and just, you know, somebody had value. And someone who got that this whole thing is temporary. Whether it's my job I have now, which is a temp job, whether I'm on this earth, it's a temporary situation. But you know, within those 2 dates, I want that dash to be that this guy, while he was here, had an open heart and shared.
All right. Let's get one for second.
All right, thank you, Minister. I appreciate it.